Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing and Distribution. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 25 years.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm. We are an independent mid-list publisher based in Portland, Oregon, and Cleveland, Ohio. We have over 700 books, over 25 employees, and we make about 40 new books every year. And we distribute thousands of titles from other publishers.
We started this podcast so that we can share what we've learned with newer publishers so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Or maybe you just want to understand the publishing industry.
As part of the Bookstore Solidarity Project today, we are joined by Meg Wasmer of the Copper Dog Books in Massachusetts.
We're in Beverly. It's one over from Salem, so we get all of like the good spooky with none of the tourist malarkey. It's A+.
I was about to say Salem, and then I was right and wrong. Anyway, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Can you tell us what makes the Copper Dog special and different among bookstores?
You know, I think that as a store, we've benefited vastly from a community that lets us be exactly our flavor of weird. You know, I was thinking about it. I'm like, we set out just to be a nice kind of genre-heavy, general interest bookstore. Like, just like nothing, like we weren't a theme bookstore. We weren't a mission-driven bookstore. We were just like, we want to be a nice bookstore in our downtown. And Beverly has just leaned so hard into who we are as people that it's let us be really like this very like community flavored bookstore. Like, it's just nice. Like we made my bookseller Jessie is very excited for Our Flag Means Death season 2. So we have a table where she picked books for every one of the characters, and people are all in on it. Like we've sold so many of them because people are like, I like this table. I like gay pirates, and they're there for it. Like,
nice.
That's fantastic. And yeah, it's nice when you get to kind of meet your community where you are and where they are, and then they can kind of learn. I think of it as like adjacent subject education. So like you have a certain amount of comfort and familiarity as a person, and then you see what the bookstore is offering and its curation, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. So I appreciate that. But can you talk a little bit about what motivated you to go into bookselling personally?
It was an accident, which I think is every bookseller origin story. I had a very early 2000s job. I worked at a video store. Netflix killed them all. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just dropped out of college because I was miserable in college. Not a good match. And I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And Borders was hiring an inventory supervisor. And I was like, I can alphabetize rectangular pieces of entertainment media. I'll apply to the bookstore. And I haven't looked back. I briefly, in carrying with the rectangular media, I worked at GameStop after the Borders crash, but I've just been bookselling ever since. It was an accident. Like,
I love rectangular media. I also have a video store origin story, and really appreciate that framing. Can you talk about your day-to-day role at Copper Dog and like what are the funnest days?
So my day-to-day role is it's been interesting because my business partner and I bought the store in 2019. I was working full-time. I didn't see anyone that worked for me. I'd been managing the store. So it was myself, my business partner was a part-time bookseller, and we had one person that worked Sundays. And if I wanted to see them, I had to come in on my day off. And so it's been really wild because I have a staff now. Like I have full-time employees because we've grown exponentially. But it means that like I just run around and kind of stick my fingers in cracks and stop emergencies because I have all of these really smart, competent people who do amazing things and they don't need me. So like it's kind of just like I walk in, I do all of the front list buying, I do all of the gift buying, but also like I roll in, and like if someone's in the sci-fi section, I'm like, "Ooh, can I sell you books?" My booksellers could do it, but like I like doing it. I do like spot receiving if needed. I like receiving sidelines because it's like getting a box of presents. But like it's not, it's wild because I don't have a typical day, which I think makes every day kind of fun, like, which sounds so trite, like it's always a surprise, but it really is like kind of the best part of my job. We've been doing farmers markets all summer, and I've been working those. We go and we pop up in towns that don't have bookstores, so like it's been really nice to kind of get to hand sell in a way I haven't been hand selling in a while. Again, because I have these really great, smart, knowledgeable booksellers who work for me. So like they don't need me anymore, which is like, it's the goal. The goal is to not be needed and to have a self-sufficient, work like collection of, humans. But also like they don't need me. Like I'll just work from home today. I don't have to be at the store. I'll just, hang out with my pet mice and do these, penguin catalogs. So that's, but anyway, my funnest days are the ones that are big surprises.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate that too. And I say the same thing about, we have a bookstore, and as being a publisher, it's the fact that literally every day is different. Like literally you learn something new every day, and you never have the same day twice. And like,
yes,
in a certain sense, that could be like showing up to work, you're like, who knows what today will behold? And in another sense, you're like, this is awesome. Like I learn new things all the time. But
yeah, go. Sorry.
and no worries. And then, so, we look at it that most of our audience is publishers. So is there something that you would like publishers to understand about how to better interface with book selling, or like what they seem to all be missing that you would like to tell them all?
So I feel like that's a question that if you ask 5 booksellers, you're going to get 30 answers, and it'll change every day. So like kind of, I think the thing that I want the most is, I want my colleagues in publishing to be treated equitably. So like my dream world has publishing thinking a little bit smarter about how they interact with me. Like my UPS driver is my employee of the month every month. He keeps us running. And there's one publisher who I'm not going to name who shells out to overnight one of my booksellers ABMs. And it means that Greg has to change his entire routine to bring me a parcel by 10:30 for a bookseller that's not going to be in the store for another 4 days. Like, don't make me Greg's enemy for the day, because I love my UPS driver, but he's grumpy, and you can tell when he's grumpy at you. But I'm like, save the money and like kick it into your staff. And like, Penguin Random House drop ships me the same cardboard VPD 6 times a year with their pre-packs. And I'm like, you could make me a nice fixture. You could not spend the money on the same VPD that I throw out 6 times a year. And you could send me a nice Penguin branded permanent object, and like just spend that money smarter. Like it's a weirdly wasteful industry for an industry that's like, our margins are so tight, then why are you throwing your money in the trash, friends? Like, don't send me like 800 unsolicited arcs. Like, just like be more conscious, I think, is where it boils down to. Like, I want equity, and I want like sustainability, and we're not there yet.
I love that answer. It's so true. Like there's so many things, and I think there's such a disconnect between publishers and booksellers. Even though we, meet and talk at all of these trade shows, we still don't know what it's like on the ground. I think I was reading recently, was it something in Shelf Awareness? There's another country that has a program where publishers can like go work in an independent bookstore for a few weeks. like publishing employees. I thought that was so smart.
I would 100% host a publishing professional, but like also every bookstore is different. You know, we're an 1,800 square foot bookstore, so we're a big small bookstore. We're not like massive, and we're a freestanding entity. I think it was Josh Christie up at Print in Portland was like, you know, there's this curse of indie bookstores where we're treated like a monolith, but we're all individuals because we're indies. Like, so like if you come and visit my store, you're going to get a very different experience than if you visit Bookshop of Beverly Farms, which is 3 miles away from me. So like we all do have a different need, but like some boots on the ground would be nice. Like I feel like it just, and like outside of New York, because New York stores are operating in a very different way than, you know, someone who's in Vermont, you know, who's in some places just entirely tourist driven 2 months a year. Like,
Totally. Is there anything in particular, like what would be like top on your list of like things that publishers seem to think is really important, but doesn't actually matter to you as a bookseller?
you know, that one's so weird because like it's one of those things where, again, like coming back to the like, please spend money thoughtfully. And like, I do think what matters to me now as a bookstore owner is different than what mattered to me when I was a frontline bookseller. So like part of me is like, you know, I have friends that are forever like, oh, stop sending me plastic. And because you want to send, like when you send like a cute little mailing, like you want to send something cute in there. Like, and so like people will send stress balls, although Nightfire sent a ghost, which I really did enjoy. They sent a ghost stress ball. But like as a business owner, I'm kind of like, send me post-it notes. Send me like things that I'll use every day that are useful, but I don't have to cherish forever. But the other thing is like, you know, I would rather, so Macmillan, bless them, they did a like a diverse author picture book promo, and they sent a really nice fixture with it, like a nice piece of plexi, and I'm like, oh man, they shelled out for the plexi. Like, and I have bought every single book that Macmillan has put in that campaign because I'm like, they sent me the plexi. They spent money on like the nicest fixture that I have in my store that isn't a Franklin fixture. And like, you know, again, I think it's usability. Like, I don't want stuff. I want stuff that works. Like, which I, again, like, I think is a little like, give me stuff, but also like, please send me stuff thoughtfully, because they do like, they like to send presents. Also send my booksellers food. Like, you know, always food. Send my booksellers cookies. Like, that was what excited me when I wasn't the one paying the bills. I wanted food. Now that I am paying the bills, I'm like, send me the stuff that I never want to buy. What is the least sexy thing that you buy for your office? That's what I want you to send me, so I can like pay my booksellers more and not buy post-it notes. Like, no.
I know, and that's kind of the thing. Like, publishers seem to have a lot of like what I call panic money, where they're like, it's not working, throw money at it, and then it's like they throw money at the weirdest things, and you're just and you know, and it's like one store told me that like they got flooded with tea from publishers, and I was like, tea, like, and they're like, yes, our office is literally overflowing with tea that was gifted. And we're like, I mean, it seems useful, and they're like, it's way too much. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, and it's one of those things like Tor.com did their monk and robot tea, and I think booksellers took to that so swimmingly that it caused a little bit of an influx. Because they sent us like really nice tea in a cute little tin paired with the perfect book. Like, it's about a tea monk, so like it made sense. But
Love that book.
you know, it wasn't it perfect, and it landed at the perfect time, like synchronicity, like but like Penguin, I think one of my favorite stupid items that was ever sent to me was Penguin had an Oprah book club book about someone who baked a lot in the book, and they sent me a pound of flour and a pie scoop, and I still have my pie scoop. And then I went home and made scones. So they gave me an activity that I could eat. And again, I wasn't stuck with it forever, but except for my thing that I actually really didn't own and kind of needed.
Right. That's okay. Yeah. And it does seem like the methodology of publishers is like they find something that works and then they repeat it until it no longer works.
Right.
The other like recurrence.
And I mean, there are things that I wouldn't mind being flooded with, like being flooded with tea. There are worse things to be flooded with, It takes a really long time to go bad. And when it's cold and you're grumpy, tea's really nice. But, so at least it's not largely not perishable. It's not like cake. Like,
right. If you got flooded with cakes, you might have to have a party for the whole town.
Yes.
Awkward.
That would be a lot of peopling.
And we're all introverts. Yeah.
Right. So what are the most important aspects of bookselling to you?
Again, I fell into this career. Like, it was an accident, and I loved reading. Like, I was always a book person. I'm a fantasy reader. We love stories, and we love big stories. And I didn't think I would love like the dopamine rush of someone being like, oh my God, I read that book and it's so good. Like, sharing your favorites with people and having them love them. Like, there are books that I don't sell as much as I love because I'm like, I just couldn't be friends with you if you didn't like this book. And it's not a you problem, it's a me problem. But yeah, I think that's kind of like, it's the best part of it. Like, as much as like we get, I'm over here like, send me Post-it notes because I hate business, brr. Like, it's all ends up being so worth it because you get to make readers. You get to be like, in December when grandparents are in and they're like, I want to buy my child, Treasure Island. I'm like, does the kid really want Treasure Island? Like, let's do some contemporary cool living stuff. And like getting to kind of like sculpt readers and sculpt the community and find the cool things that my community is going to love. Really, it's why we do what we do. Like, it's not lucrative. We don't make a ton of money. It's a ton of work, but we get to make really cool communities.
Do you have a funny bookstore story that you can share with our audience?
Oh gosh. Trying to think, like, I'm such an angsty goth. Like, I'm kind of like humor. I've got none of that. Gosh.
It's all right. You can share a poignant story or a story that has a different emotional resonance.
Story. My favorite bookstore story is an accident, and it's kind like, it's not humorous, but it's I have a regular. His name's Bob. I love Bob. We recommend each other books all the time, and in casual conversation, I was like shooting the shit with Bob. He's like, I used to work in bookstores, and as it turns out, Bob was the manager of the bookstore that I like learned to love reading in. Like, he managed the laureates at my local mall, and I'm like, I don't have, like, Ipswich didn't have a bookstore, the town I grew up in. It had them, but then kept killing them. So we kind of had chain stores. And Star Wars nerd, I used to go to Bob's bookstore and like crawl the shelves when Kevin J. Anderson's Young Jedi Knights was coming out, looking for the next book. Like, he ran the store that like made me love bookstores, and it's like my favorite thing about managing and owning this store is that it feels like I brought this really cool story full circle.
Oh, that is so charming. And now you sell books to Bob and help him keep alive his love of books.
It's so good.
Yeah, and to me, I'm like, the big takeaway here is like, you built a store that was as appealing to Bob as Bob's store was appealing to you. And that's fascinating to me. Like, that's
Well,
the
and
best
it's
part.
kind of like coming back to the whole, like, you build communities, and like, you don't know when you're going to hand the book that turns someone into a reader, or that changes the course of their reading life. Like, I again, I grew up in a community that had bookstores that it kept killing because it didn't have a downtown that would support them. And I didn't grow up in a house. I grew up in a household that deeply valued books, but would never, like, I don't remember going to the library as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my dad was incredibly smart. He was, always reading and always learning. And my mother read recreationally, but I never remember being like, oh, we're going to the bookstore, let's go to the library. It was kind of like, found you a book at Buck-a-Book, thought you might like it. So, like, I never had a lot of control over the media that came into my life. I just kind of read what was around, what was gifted to me. And so those experiences where I was able to go to the bookstore, like, it was Friday night, you went to the mall out of town, like, it was like half an hour away, became like these very cherished moments, because, like, my mom wanted to go to, shop for furniture, shop for clothes. I'm like, I'm going to sit in a bookstore. And, like, I don't think I'm alone in that experience. I think a lot of us are be like, oh yeah, I was avoiding going clothes shopping. I hated that. Like, to this day, like, I'm a 90s cartoon character. I wear the same black tank top. I just own 7 of them every single day. Like, found something that worked, stuck with it. Like, but,
Well, I was just thinking about, how a lot of the formative books that I got as a kid and a teenager were all from Barnes & Noble. And it was not like an inspiring Barnes & Noble with like booksellers. I don't remember ever interacting with a bookseller there a single time, but just like the fact that it existed was so important. And, like, just showing up is like enough. You know what I mean?
well,
And then going the extra mile is like even better. But
I feel like with bookselling, like, it's someplace that, like, a lot of bookstore gift cards are like this, very common gift that you give a child. Like, and it is such a low risk failure. Like, it's such an easy way to let kids kind of learn how to be themselves. Worst case scenario is they get a book that they don't love, but they've learned what they don't like, so that in the future they can, find things that are more to their palate. And, like, they're not going to get hurt if they make the wrong choice here. There's going to be no, lasting impact. Worst case scenario, that the lasting impact is you accidentally made a bookseller. Like, it is such a good place for people to learn to people. Like,
yes. Yeah, and like, you get to explore, you get to find out like all of the different ideas in the whole world and what you might like and not like.
Yeah.
I love bookstores. Okay. Well, I think that's all of our questions. Thank you so much for coming on to the People's Guide to Publishing podcast. Again, This is Meg Wassmer from Copper Dog Books in Beverly, Massachusetts. Go there and ask for all their recommendations for gay pirate books.
And thanks for selling our books, Meg. You've been, and it's fun to get to know you on Twitter and like see what you're excited about. And is there anything else you want to share with the book selling and or publishing public?
Oh gosh, nothing off the top of my head. Although I will say, my colleague bought every single one of my Ronald Reagan's grave as a gender neutral bathroom stickers. So, like, clearly ordering a half dozen of those was not enough. So, like, plan accordingly when you're ordering your microcosm stickers for your staff. Like,
good to know. Yeah, that one has been wildly popular. I'm not sure I'm surprised, but I'm pleased to see it.
I think that it's easy to relegate Ronald Reagan to such a thing of the past that remembering that he was a giant piece of shit and committed a genocide against an entire part of our population is really important. So that's a nice, easy way to be like, you know, fuck that dude and the long-lasting implications of his reign of terror.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sorry, got super political there, but I don't think you mind.
No, I don't think any of us mind.
I know this is my favorite review of the People's Guide to Publishing book is it's from an older man, and he basically says that he loved all the information in the book, but he found the bias in the book to be not racist enough. And I was like, of all the negative reviews a person can get.
I love a good critical reviewer. I'm like, ooh, you've missed the point of this establishment.
Exactly. But yeah, so that's been a fascinating journey to be like, oh, I guess everybody gets to have an opinion.
I mean, they do. God, people, there's so much. I love them, but there's so much.
Well, on that note,
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub,
On Twitter at microcosm,
on Facebook at Microcosm Publishing,
on Instagram at microcosm_pub.
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.